I want to show you how I store my decks and my other divinatory tools. I've got Oracle, playing cards, tarot decks. I've also got pendulums and coins and things like that. And I just thought I'd walk you through how I put together these like two-tiered and where I got that Oracle shelf. Just show you around. I keep some crystal display, my decks, and some books just on a bookshelf. But I made this background using drawer organizers. These are a couple sets of bamboo drawer organizers that I just laid kind of vertically so I could put my crystals in them. And then I put some felt on the bottom just to protect the shelf from the crystals and I guess the crystals from the shelf. And then here I just keep my coins, my game pieces, and my pendulums, which I use for yes/no questions. I do have a video about how I do yes/no questions as a reader who generally doesn't do yes/no questions and whose main goal is to empower you with a reading, but I do end up doing yes/no questions because sometimes you just need them. So I'll link that video below. For my tarot deck shelves, I had to get creative to find some things that would work as risers so that I could have 2 layers of decks on the shelf. And you can see that it's also a little bit overflowing. I've got decks just sitting on the side, but some of these I put on the side for a reason. Decks like these, where the cover is bigger than the bottom and it doesn't go all the way to the back, they don't sit very well upright, and so I leave those laying sideways. But I just used, again, another drawer organizer back here, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's not quite big enough, but it does the job. The decks are secure there. And then this is just a little wooden box that I turned sideways to create another riser, a little half shelf to fit more decks onto a bookshelf. I'm trying to not buy anything to create these little half shelves. So if we look back here, let me see if I can figure out how to show you. I made a half shelf with one of those giant boxes you get. Sometimes you get a deck that's in a huge box. And so I've got the deck out of there so I can read with the deck. I've got the guidebook out of there, but I put the box in the back to make a stack for more decks on top. And then I've also tucked some decks back here that I don't use very much. They're just sort of reference decks. I keep those back here. And then this is a Wild Unknown box doing the same work as the other one, making a little shelf. I keep my oracles and a handful of my playing card collection over here on this shelf. This is a bathroom organizer. I got it at like Home Goods years ago, but it's very skinny and it's got this rail around it so the decks stay in there. It's just a great fit for most deck boxes. Not all will fit here. You have to turn them sideways in order to fit them in sometimes. But this is a bathroom organizer that's just meant to sit on the floor, and I've got it on top of an old steamer trunk here. And then on top of the steamer trunk, I have another one of those drawer organizers where I've got decks that I keep in bags. Those go here. And then I've also got this like homemade oracle deck that I keep in a recipe box, and my boggle game, which I use sometimes as like an oracle or a sort of like a spread machine. And then off to the side here on top of another shelf, this is where I keep extra cards and guidebooks that don't fit very well in the box or the bag that the decks came in. I keep boxes that I took the decks out of and put them in bags, these kind of giant boxes that I'm not using as a riser. I just store those separately. My main goal with these decks is to store them safely, but also as small as possible. So if a deck comes in a double box, I like to keep the single box on the shelf and the bigger box elsewhere. And then I just keep track of all the guidebooks on the side instead of having that giant box taking up a ton of room on my bookshelf. You might notice that there are some empty spaces when you look at the shelves. That's just because those decks are upstairs with me right now. I take a small collection of decks up to my work desk every week to have and use when I'm up there. And so that's why those decks aren't there. I do post a video about my weekly deck edit. I'll link one of them below, but I usually post them on Tuesdays if you're interested in seeing what I've got for the week. And that's it. That's my deck storage. I really try to keep things as compact as possible. I do not have infinite room, and I like to be able to see the decks at a glance. So I do try to keep things as organized as possible. Let me know if you have any questions or ideas for me. I love hearing how other people keep their decks organized and store them. Like if you liked the video, subscribe for more tarot content, and thanks for stopping by.